Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. And in today's video, of course, got the boxing and MMA news. And so, if you're on your around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, starting off with the boxing news, of course, Turner and Herrera have joined Queensbury. O'Leary has joined Conlan Boxing. Lawal has unfortunately passed away. That was Sheriff Lawal after making his professional debut just, I believe, last weekend. Unfortunately, he did pass away afterwards, and it's another one of them stories where it's just boxing. You see the negative effects boxing can have, and see when the correct measures aren't taken that perhaps it can just be too much, and that the sport is something you have to really take seriously, and you always have to show the correct measures are in place. I'm not implying that they perhaps weren't, but this stuff does happen in the sport, and it is always really sad to see. Haney has requested that Garcia to be disqualified from their fight. Do I feel like that's going to happen? Probably not, to be completely honest. I don't really think it's happened often, if not ever. It's been very rare that decisions actually get overturned, so for that to happen, it's unlikely. Mayweather Jr. is set to fight Ortiz August 24th, so I don't really know what's happening with that Gatti free rematch, if that's actually going to happen or not. But if not, then that's some sort of fight they're getting arranged. Haney is set to rematch Pauls. Heaney, sorry, is set to rematch Pauls. Kademi versus Farag. McGann and Gaskin will fight June 21st. Great to see McGann back in action. Barrayu versus McGowan. Kelly versus Warburton. Tarwood, Marksby, Price, and Talon will fight June 14th. That is a good Wasserman card. Maybe I'll be in somewhat of attendance of that of some kind. IBF have ordered Canelo versus Skull. Strange, obviously I believe Skull has got himself in that IBF mandatory position, but you kind of know for a fact that that fight isn't going to happen. But it's intriguing that it's been ordered, and perhaps that means that further along down the line, as we're seeing with usyk at the moment, the IBF belt might be actually inevitably stripped off Canelo. I'm not too sure. Ortiz and Pinero has joined Matchroom. Murtazaliev is set to fight Lubin. I think that's a really good fight. Medina has joined 360 Boxing Promotions. Chavez Jr. versus Till, and Silva versus Schofield will fight July 20th. It's interesting to see Till actually getting into boxing, and fighting Chavez Jr. is a very interesting fight. Not too sure how that's going to go, but the Silva versus Schofield fight, I feel like, is a fight which, on a card such as this, which has got good fights being made on it, this is probably one of the best actual boxing fights on it. I mean, Chavez versus Till might not be the best actual boxing display, especially from Till, and then Paul versus Tyson might not be, but I mean, Taylor versus Serrano probably will be, but this one is a real good fight, and it's a 50-50 early on in their career, and it's a fight in which a lot of fans have been wanting to see, and it's great to see it's actually happening. Fierro versus Santiago, Rivera versus Sandoval, Pinero versus Tapia, and Ortiz versus Gonzalez will fight June 15th. Great to see Rivera getting another step up in opponent, another tough step up in opponent. Nakatani will fight Astrolabio July 20th. Bivol is in talks to fight Beterbiev in October or December. His Excellency Turkey Al-Sheikh wants Fury vs Joshua, Davis vs Inoue, Canelo vs Crawford, and Bivol vs Beterbiev winner versus Benavides, and that's his kind of dream fights in which he's wanting to make at the moment, and they're all amazing fights. If any of them are to happen, then it'd be amazing. I'm not too sure my opinions on, fighters moving up in weights. I mean, like Inoue moving up all the way to lightweight to fight Davis, and Crawford moving all the way up to super middleweight to fight Canelo. Obviously, there could be some catchweight agreement, but I just genuinely don't know if I'm too much of a fan of fighters moving weight that much. But nonetheless, they would be huge events and huge fights, and I'm sure there will be still that intrigue there from me. Chamberlain will fight Massey June 15th. Hunter will fight Spencer June 6th. Iglesias will fight Shevdenko June 6th. Zepeda will fight Cabrera July 6th. Hughes has activated her rematch clause versus Johnson. Gibb is set to fight July 20th. The return of Gibb on that Tyson Paul undercard. Apparently, that's going to be announced tomorrow. From the recording of this tomorrow. Russell is set to fight Puello June 15th, and Billy that is set to fight Derevyanchenko August 17th. Of course, if he gets through Heffron this coming weekend, and it's still going to be a tough test. Heffron. Falk won via unanimous decision versus Hubmaier. Langberg won via stoppage in round 5 versus Sasinski. Odiasi won via TK round 1 versus Solmaz. Jerk won via unanimous decision versus Tintor. Sachen Huber won via unanimous decision versus Ariaza. Cherkadzian won via unanimous decision versus Scarf, and it was sad to see Scarf not get the victory, but he dared to be great, and it's always the case, and quite often you see with British fighters they do just fall short, and obviously it wasn't any kind of bad stoppage or anything, and to get even in the position to fight for that fight is still a very big achievement, and so no discredit from Scarf, and still a very good fighter. Moving on, Itorma won via TK round 2 versus Mezenchev to become WBO Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion. Yiko won via TKO in round 4 versus Seats to become IBF International Cruiserweight Champion. Lapin won via KO in round 1 versus Pudi Vita. Low won via points versus Ahmadi. Safar won via unanimous decision versus Kovalev. Chamberlain won via TK round 1 versus Wahab to become WBC Silver Lightweight Champion. Opataya won via unanimous decision versus Briadis to become IBF World Cruiserweight Champion. Caballero won via KO in round 7 to become, versus Sanchez to remain WBC Continental American and WBO NABO Heavyweight Champion. Kakase won via TK round 8 versus Cordina to become IBF and IBO World Super Featherweight Champion. Usyk won via split decision versus Fury to become IBF, IBO, WBA Super, WBC and WBO World Heavyweight Champion. And of course this was the big card of the week. It was the reason as to why we didn't really see any other cards happen by the other singular top rank one, and that one with Chikadzian versus Scarf. There wasn't really any boxing action otherwise because all the promoters were involved pretty much in this card, to be honest, and the creation of it, just such a huge event, and of course the first undisputed heavyweight championship fought for in 25 years had to be a huge event, and that it was. And I'm going to go through the fights in which intrigued me to start off with Itorma getting another very impressive stoppage versus Mezenchev, and Mezenchev wasn't really still anything too big of an opponent, and I would like to see Itorma moving on and progressing through now, but I do think them big opportunities in Saudi are probably going to keep coming his way now after that big stoppage, and he is looking better and better, and he does have that good hand speed, and he does have elements that make him that much more exciting compared to other up-and-coming heavyweights, and perhaps probably is the biggest up-and-coming heavyweight name coming out of England at the moment. And when you look at, of course Fury lost, and you look at Joshua not being able to quite get to the top, and, recent heavyweights from Britain, there's a high standard to get to, but there's not really anybody at the moment who perhaps you could argue is quite there yet. I mean, when you look at Wardley, he just drew versus Clark, so they're going to probably rematch, and so there is going to be a bit of a delay there. When you look at, Johnny Fisher, he's not there yet. When you look at Solomon Dakers, he's not yet there yet. Not saying Atama's anywhere near there yet, but he's probably the one that's getting the most backing and getting the most hype around him, and the one in which is progressing probably arguably the best at the moment. And so we'll have to wait and see. Of course, things can change very easily in the heavyweight division as we've been shown, but for the moment he's progressing very nicely. The low points for Samadi was nice to see as well. Low getting more fights, getting more wins. He is somebody who's always gaming up for a fight, and even if he is never really going to get to a world championship level standard, he's entertaining. Safar versus Kovalev. Kovalev, now being shown his age and shown that he isn't able to really fight around any kind of high level anymore. Safar just seemed to want it a bit more. Kovalev was very slow and stagnant in his movements, and just didn't really seem like he was there for it, to be completely honest. And he's past his age, and that kind of mindset that perhaps he once had when he was fighting, I feel like it has gone to an extent now, and it wouldn't surprise me if he retires soon. Probably, maybe we see him one more time, but if not, he probably will retire soon, and that's nothing to discredit him, really. The Chamberlain TKO was a very impressive TKO. That was against Wahab, who was an unknown opponent, and he was somebody who could have caused a problem for Chamberlain, but very much didn't, and Chamberlain showed that level again and dismantled him easily, and I'm going to be intrigued to see now where he goes from here, because obviously he's His Excellency's seemingly favourite fighter, and he's getting these big opportunities on these big cards, and so surely there's going to be an opportunity at some point where it's another kind of perhaps fringe world level step up next, and that would be something which I'm sure nobody's going to be complaining about when he's put in these big knockout performances, when he's really delivering on these big stages and each time looking better on these big stages. Optaya Briedis, that was another very good fight, really. It was perhaps not quite as intense as the first one between the two of them, but it was still very well fought, and Optaya did win relatively clearly, but he got really drawn into a fight again, and Briedis still showed that there's a lot left in him, and he's got really good fundamentals and a high IQ to be able to drag fighters into his fight, and it was impressive to see. Briedis, like I say, has a lot of life left in him. I think Optaya's movement was one of the only things that was really getting him out of there, but at times, offensive wise, he was getting caught with things. Defensive wise, he was getting caught with things out, and so there's definitely things to learn when it comes to, he's not going to be able to just walk for everybody, and perhaps has shown that there is a world level step up from perhaps the fighters that he's been fighting as of recent and to the Briedises of the world and the other big cruiserweights. But I would love to see him in some other world title level fights now, because I feel like these bring the best out of him and are going to just make for more and more entertaining fights. The Caballero Sanchez one was good as well, to be fair. I mean, Caballero now becoming a big name in the heavyweight division and really kind of cementing himself after that performance. I feel like people were writing him off to also say I got the Optaya prediction right, but this one I got wrong. I thought Sanchez would be able to win. I felt like a lot of people did, and Sanchez just went on the back foot straight away. Caballero really imposed himself physically and just didn't give Sanchez any room to breathe. And Sanchez, I feel like, has that speed to an extent, but Caballero was just in his face so much that it didn't really matter. But really good shot selection and just good distribution of shots as well, and a high output and hard shots, and really, but like I say, put it on Sanchez and just showed that he was outwilling him. And yeah, it was an impressive performance. But when you speak about outwilling, the Kakase performance versus Cordina, I mean, I spoke to Kakase, had the privilege to speak to him before this fight, and couple months ago now, and he looked like he was up for the fight. And I saw somebody speak about this fight and kind of said that Cordina perhaps was overlooking Kakase and was just thinking about these big other paydays or other big world challenges, and Kakase was perhaps not really that, but Kakase was really going to just put it onto him and really just was going to be aggressive, and I knew that would be the case. I said that in my prediction, but I thought Cordina would be able to move better and prevent that from happening and slow Kakase down, but he just really couldn't do that. And when you're coming off that performance against Vasquez, and to be fair, even against Rakhimov, neither of them were two vintage performances from perhaps what we're used to from Cordina, and perhaps he's now been shown up as to where he is and where his level is, and I still think he is a great operator, but Kakase just really outwilled him and really outshone him, and like I say, just showed that he wanted it more and put it on him in an impressive fashion, and really was landing clean as well, consistently really clean. And so I was glad that the referee jumped in when he did, and it's just going to be intriguing to see where Kakase goes from here now. I mean, he's gone from, he had a backing before with Queensbury, but now he's gone to having a huge backing, and the Irish fans are going crazy for him now. And so, like I say, he's got a lot of pressure on him now, and it's going to be intriguing to see where he can progress and what his options will be next. And then moving on to the big fight, I mean, Usyk Fury was always going to come with controversy and things like that, and it definitely had that. And I think in general the actual score is just controversy in my opinion. I mean, I had it 8-4. Yeah, I had it 8-4 Usyk, and plus a 10-8 round, 8-4, and then one of them being a 10-8 round as well. And so it was just a brilliant performance from Usyk. I got my prediction right for this one. I said it would be a decision. I think I said unanimous decision, but nonetheless I said it would be a decision, and a lot of people were writing off Usyk and saying if you go to the body, Fury will be able to find success, and he was, to be fair. I mean, Usyk I had winning the first 3 rounds, I believe, and then Fury came into it a bit. He managed to gain a rhythm, was landing cleanly, was timing Usyk when he was coming in with the uppercut and going to the body relatively nice a lot of the time. And like I said, good timing and everything. And then he was gaining confidence. And then at that point, you're thinking, oh wow, something could actually be happening here, where Fury's, like I say, gaining that confidence, gaining that momentum. And when you go through the early rounds where perhaps, I don't know, I feel like Fury just looked perhaps a little bit, maybe not nervous, but he just looked a little bit unsure as what to be doing, because every time he did get caught with a shot, he was just, you know, throwing out some weird face or anything like that. And you know, he is used to doing that, and he does do that, but he just it looked. I feel like I saw an element of nerves in it earlier, and it was a huge event, so I'm not surprised. But Usyk just looked completely switched on the whole entire time, and even when he was getting caught with shots, he did get hurt at one point, but he never really looked too hurt or anything like that. But as soon as he landed big on Fury, I kind of could see that punch was coming, because he did it earlier on in the fight and found success with it, but obviously not that level of success which he did in the ninth round. And it's just when he landed that shot, it was consistently going to the body for so long. So when he did finally find the gap, and well, Fury did keep his guard relatively low, he was kind of asking for it. He landed it nicely, very nicely, and then had Fury stumbling about. Then he was probably going to get stopped, of course, if the ref didn't jump in. I understand why the ref jumped in. I don't necessarily know what the rulings were on standing 10 counts, and you know, Fury did get hold up because of the rope, so perhaps it was smart to make that count. But at the same time, I've also seen many fights where if the fighter is still stood up and they're getting beat up, then they kind of have to let it go, the ref. And so it works both ways. Like I say, I don't entirely know the rulings on that, but nonetheless, I'm just very glad that the deserved winner won. Fury, I do think, came back into it perhaps a little bit into the last round, but Usyk was just so regimented and disciplined in his work, which was just amazing to see. I mean, he even went to the 11th round, he was going to the body beautifully, slipping shots consistently from Fury, and like I say, hardly getting hit from that. And what other heavyweight have you ever really seen doing that? It's just unheard of, really. And so that is just something, like I say, discipline-wise, which makes him a level above any other heavyweight. And I think he is going to be able to win again in the rematch versus Fury. And obviously, I'm loving to see these big fights getting made. I think Usyk could have won by even more impressive fashion if he did end up stopping him, but nonetheless, I'm just very glad that he did win and didn't get robbed of a decision. Or, you know, I don't really like to normally call robbery, but, you know, perhaps the right way of putting it is I'm just very glad that he won, and he definitely deserved to win. In my opinion, I thought it should have been unanimous. Obviously, one of the refs didn't give it that way, and I feel like that is a bit ludicrous to an extent, but Fury, he's going to have to really. It's going to be intriguing to see where his mindset goes. I think something has to be done with his corner. I believe that it was just an absolute mess, to be honest, because he had his main coach in Sugar Hill, and you know, should have been the main voice, and he should have been the only person in which Fury was looking towards. But of course, Big John Fury was getting his whole mouth's worth in the entire time, and I'm sure that was distracting Fury a lot of the time as well, and not giving clear messages at all. And that's something which I feel like definitely has to be sorted and changed, and something has to be done to be able to fix that. But I don't necessarily know if anything will end up happening. I really don't like what Fury said about the country thing, with U6 country being at war, to that as the reason why they're more sided with him to win. That's a stupid comment. I feel like that's just going to perhaps fuel Usyk even more in the rematch, but nonetheless, Usyk is such a regimented fighter and person in general. I don't necessarily know if that's even going to get to him too much, but I just feel like that was an unnecessary comment, to be completely honest. But nonetheless, we're probably going to see the rematch in October. It was a great event, great fight. It really lived up to the hype, I feel like it did, and I feel like I'm just glad that it wasn't like a draw or anything too bad like that, and it didn't end in the wrong person winning. I was very afraid that that could happen, and nonetheless, we're going to be intrigued to see what happens next. Like I say, what's Fury going to do from this loss, how it's going to affect him, and how Usyk is going to be able to, stay in shape, which I'm sure he will, to be able to get ready for the rematch in around October time. And if it actually is just so easy to be made again this time. Moving on though. Mansur won by unanimous decision vs Dudo. Barrera Jr. won by unanimous decision vs Benitez. Vargas won by a KO in round 7 vs Urena. Torres Jr. won by a TK in round 5 vs Moore to become North American Boxing Federation Junior Heavyweight Champion. Garcia won by unanimous decision vs Flores. Lopez won by a KO in round 8 vs Ortega. Norman Jr. won by a KO in round 10 vs Santillan to become WBO Interim World Welterweight Champion. Borincic won by a split decision vs Navarrete to become WBO World Lightweight Champion. And to speak a little bit about that card, it was good to see. Torres Jr. getting a victory and against an opponent who was an unbeaten, I believe, opponent, and it was a solid victory. It was another impressive stoppage where he is getting his opponent on the ice. I feel like there is a bit more technique in his work now, and he is landing clean than what he once was, and so that's nice to see. The Norman Jr., I got my prediction wrong for that one. I thought Santillan would be able to win being on the front foot, but Norman Jr. surprised me. I didn't think he had it in him to be able to fight the way that he did, and really boxed well on the inside, in which I just haven't really seen from Norman Jr. And he came with confidence and was landing timing cleanly shots, and it was impressive, and it was a very good, brutal stoppage. Santillan has a lot of heart to be able to get through that, which I already knew was the case, but that was a bloody messy stoppage, and yeah, Norman Jr. confident in the process as well, which is always nice to see. And I feel like there is fights there that's intriguing for him now, and now that's a huge win to be able to beat someone like Santillan, of course, who's coming off the Rocha win himself. And so the welterweight division is looking intriguing now, with another competitor being brought into the mix. And then Borincic be able to win versus Navarrete, another prediction I got wrong, and seemed like Borincic, like I say, surprised me as well. Split decision, a very good night for the Ukrainian fighters. Navarrete just seemed to struggle with that step up, and a couple of performances now in a row in which it's just not been the prime Navarrete, and perhaps the age is catching up to him. And Borincic is older, but maybe the time in the ring and the wars in which Navarrete has had is catching up to him a little bit now, and or just perhaps moving up in weight was just a bit too much for him. Moving on now to the MMA news. Cortez will fight Maverick July 20th. Namajunas will fight Barber July 13th. Brito will fight Ige July 20th. Edwards vs Mohammed 2. Aspinall vs Blades 2. Green vs Pimblett. Allen vs Chikadze. And Makayev vs Cape will fight July 27th. That's a great British UFC card. Very excited to see them. I think the Mohammed getting a shot versus Edwards finally for his title is going to be intriguing, the build up for that especially. Aspinall Blades 2 was shaping up, in my opinion, to be a good matchup, and of course now we're going to see it. Obviously it's not Pereira and it's not Garn, but that was probably the third best option, to be completely fair. But it's just good to see Aspinall not waiting around for that Jones fight. Green vs Pimblett, I think it's going to be an amazing fight. Allen vs Chikadze will probably be good. And Makayev versus Cape is another fight which I'm very excited for, because I'm intrigued by Makayev's progression. Mix won by split decision versus Magomedov to become Bellator MMA Bantamweight Champion. Roundtree vs Hill was cancelled. Demopoulos won via decision versus Dakota. Healy won via decision versus Rodriguez. Carnellosi won via disqualification round 2 versus Rodriguez. Magomedov won via decision versus Alves. Gato won via KO in round 3 versus Vidal. Sai won via submission round 1 versus Tokos. Nolan won via KO in round 1 versus Martinez. Hill won via submission round 2 versus Pinheiro. Yanez won via KO in round 1 versus Salvador. Garimbo won via decision versus Marahi Maj. Williams won via KO in round 1 versus Harris. And Murphy won via decision versus Barboza. And Williams, that was an impressive stoppage from him versus Harris. He's now becoming, a bit more of a competitor in and around the mix. But the Murphy-Barboza fight was a very good fight. I think Murphy, he was good, he was sharp, he was the quicker fighter, and he's now going to build himself a name as well with his first 5-rounder in the bank. And Barboza, he showed that there is still a level about him. His kicks were very hard and snapping, but Murphy's, speed and youthfulness and athleticism and just general ability was just that too much. And Barboza is still going to be able to put up valiant contests for any up-and-coming fighters, I believe. But Murphy, as an English fighter, is going to be somebody who I'm very intrigued to see his progression. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like it if you did indeed love it. Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.